Okay guys, let's get into learning some principles of creating a good gesture drawing. In this lesson, we're going to explore the importance of a clear silhouette and line of action. Let's start with having a clear silhouette. Here we have two drawings of the same man, both from different angles. In both drawings, we can see that he is using a phone. Both drawings give us enough information to understand that. But what if we look at just the silhouette of the drawings? Now that we are just looking at the silhouette version, things have changed. When we look at drawing 1, some information is lost. We can't tell what the character is doing, but in the second drawing, we can still tell the character is holding something. Because of this simple fact, drawing 2 is the better drawing. A drawing that has a clear silhouette is easily readable to our brain and is more pleasing to the eye. Let's look at some other examples of a good silhouette. Here we have an example of a clear silhouette. It does not take more than a second for our brains to identify that this is a football player sizing up to kick the ball. It's the same with this silhouette. We immediately know this is a man riding a bicycle. Now in this example, I want you to notice the use of negative space that makes the silhouette stronger. If we were to remove the negative space and fill in these areas, the clarity of the silhouette would go down. Information that we previously had is now lost. We won't see the position of the hands, we won't know if the man is pedaling or if he is stationary. So pay attention to the negative space when trying to improve your silhouettes. Let's take a look at some examples of clear silhouettes that appear in animation. I specifically want to show you some from The Incredibles 2, which I think really makes the characters read very well on screen. Even if you haven't seen The Incredibles, you will still be able to identify that this silhouette is a woman on a motorcycle. Pay attention again to the use of the negative space and how it adds value to the clarity of the silhouette. Here is another pose that has a great silhouette. Notice the position of the arms and the legs. They are not clustered together but are stretched out from the body. Here we have a great shot of all the characters in the film together. From looking at these silhouettes, we can identify each character and their position on screen. It may seem as something so small and obvious, but many people overlook this simple fundamental and may end up composing something like this. In this version, we can't tell the position of the characters and we can't really tell what they are doing because a lot of the information is lost because of the cluster. Now I don't expect you all to black out every drawing you make to make sure it reads well, but for example, let's say you created an illustration and you may find that something isn't working and you really can't tell why. Check your silhouette. Most of the time the reason why your illustration isn't working is because the silhouette could be stronger. Let's take a look at an example of improving a silhouette to make your overall gesture stronger. Here we have a reference image of two soldiers, one holding a flare and one holding a gun. When we convert it into a silhouette version, much of the information is lost. We can't tell what the second soldier is doing and we can't really tell the position of the two soldiers in relation to each other. Let's see how we can improve this to allow it to read more clearly. Here is a version of the same characters with some adjustments. To make the soldier sitting on the ground read more clearly, I changed the direction that he is looking at to allow him to read much more easily. In my suggestion, we can now see the shape of the gun and we can now understand that he is aiming down the scope of the gun. I also moved him down a bit so that his silhouette would not overlap the other soldiers. For the standing soldier, I increased the areas of negative space by separating his legs and pulling his right arm away from his body. The new position of the arms and legs allowed the pose to read better. Another small adjustment I made was repositioning the rifle to peek out more at the top of the rocks just so it wouldn't be lost. So these are my suggested changes and we can clearly see that the silhouette is stronger and reads much easier. So the goal here is to not overlook the importance of a silhouette. Do whatever you can to make your piece communicate easier to your audience. Let's move on now to line of action. As I said before, gesture drawing is focused on capturing the action of a subject in your sketch, and the line action is basically the general direction the body of the subject is pushing towards to execute whatever action is in progress. Let's look at some sample images, and we are going to analyze the poses and break them down into simple lines of action. Alright, here we have an example of a little boy playing baseball, and he's running towards the base. So we're going to use this as an example of how to break down a subject and how to see the line of action, okay? Right, so this boy is running, right? So he's running in that direction. Now, if you look at his body, you could see that his body is leaning towards the direction he's running. So you can see his back is curved and it goes straight into his legs, well, this leg, and out there, right? And his head is even kind of tilted backwards. So you can see the force of his body is moving in towards the general direction that he is running in, right? So if we wanted to break this down into see his line of action, or one line of action, you could do it like this. So we see this line curving and pushing towards the direction he's running. And if you want, you could also add in the next foot. So you could see the energy of the pose. And if we want, we could also add in just the positions of the arm here, right? Basically a stick figure. But what we're really looking for in this is this main line of action. This is the main force we're looking at here. We're going to talk about pushing the pose and exaggeration in the later lessons. So once you understand the main line of action in the pose, then you could push that pose even further, or to exaggerate the angle of the pose, right? So here we have another example of a football player. So what we notice about his body is that this is the main part of the story here, right? So all his energy is going towards that ball, right? So let's draw the head, right? As you can see, the energy he's putting in to kick in the ball creates this swooping line of action. Like his back is crunching into his stomach, so you get this curve at the top here, and then you get this line, the energy. Let me make that more clear for you guys to see. You get this nice swooping line. And notice that the line is at an angle like this. Now usually lines that are at an angle give you more energy and more movement, and lines that are vertical like this give you a sense of more sturdiness and strength. So if we were to just draw it here off the image, we can see the line of action there. And once you've identified where the energy of the pose is going, then you could build your gesture on this. It's like a framework for you to work on, so you don't have to worry about drawing the muscles and drawing the calf muscles and everything. We're focusing on the story, where the energy in the pose is going, and then you could just build upon that. And then you could go on to exaggerate the pose even more. If you want more energy in the pose, you could tilt it to get more energy, and so on. Now we'll talk more about that in the later classes. But let's look at a different example, one that doesn't have this kind of energy, but a different line of action. So here we have another reference image of a woman, and she's standing on her hand. So this one is a bit more stationary compared to the previous examples, but there is still energy and there's still a line of action that you need to identify here. Because if you're doing a gesture of this, you might want to just draw like she's standing on her hand and drawing her really straight. But what you need to notice is that looking at her body, and when you're trying to identify the line of action, you can see that there's a curving motion. It's curving in and then it's moving out, as though gravity is bringing her feet down this way, and she's keeping her balance on her arms, which too have a bit of a curve. Her arms and her torso have a slight curve. They're not like totally straight like these lines, and her body isn't going straight up. Our brains tend to want to straighten up things and not notice the nuances in the angles of the body. So if we were to look at the bare bones of the line of action, it would look something like this. And then you would have the arms with a slight curve. So if you look at this one compared to this one, you could see more energy, more life with that simple curve. And let's actually take this to a more final version, so you could see how it would look with the nuanced curvature of the body, adding that energy and that life based off the line of action. Now I'm using some principles that I haven't touched upon here, but don't worry about that yet. We will get into that in the later classes. But I just want to show you, once you've identified the line of action, you could build upon it and get something that has a lot more energy. So we have the curve. Right? So let us look at how some people tend to create this piece. Their brains would see like, oh, someone's standing on their hand. That means they're standing up straight. So let me draw everything straight like this. And it looks pretty lifeless. They don't take into consideration the slight bending and the pulling of the gravity on the person because they didn't study the line of action and they went create something like this, which is totally wrong. Well, it's not wrong, it's just it doesn't have as much life as this one, right? There's much more energy. This one is a better line of action in this one as compared to this. This one is straight and boring and there's no life, right? So even when it's a simple pose as someone just standing on their hands and it looks as though they're standing up straight, like really watch the pose, really watch the curvature of the body and the line of action and where the energy is going, right? So let's move on to the assignment for this class now. Alright, so for the assignment for this class, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to leave a bunch of reference images at the end of this video for you to look at. And what I want you to do is that I want you to see if you could improve the silhouette of these images and the people within the images, improve on the pose to allow it to read clearer. Now, I will leave certain images for that, and then I have another bunch of reference images that I want you guys to draw the line of action like how I previously showed in the examples. Just do one quick line of action and just try and see how the body moves and flows and use one line to describe the line of action throughout the pose. So that's your assignment for this class, guys. Good luck and see you in the next class.